Welcome to today's Critical Conversation, Halloween week, but this is not a spooky presentation. It's going to be a great presentation, and I'm going to first go over our rules for today. As always, chat is going to be disabled while the presentation is happening so that you can focus on what Niab and Ryan have to share. If you think of something, please jot it down on a piece of paper, and once they're finished with their presentation, we'll open up chat. You can ask a question by raising your emoji hand at the bottom of your screen, or you can type it into chat and we will make sure that those questions are answered in the order that they are received. This session is being recorded and it will be posted next week in case you need to see it again or you have a colleague who missed it. And I am now going to turn it over to President Sisson.
Thanks, Beth. Great to see everybody this afternoon. Feels like we haven't seen you in a couple of days since Friday's professional day. Really glad you could join us today. Really excited about the information that we're going to share. I don't have any slides for you, but I do want to share a couple of reminders and give you a little ad for our next critical conversation. So most importantly, we have open door days and still happy to have you make a reservation with Angela or an appointment or drop in. Next month we'll be in Bedford, and that will be on Friday, November 14th. So Bedford, Zoom, whatever works for you. If you want to reach out, always love hearing from all of you one-on-one and sharing your thoughts and concerns and ideas. So please don't hesitate to stop in for November's Open Door Day. And again, I want to thank everyone who's participated in the past. I really appreciate hearing from all of you. Second piece I want to mention is that our next critical conversation is not going to be until December 2nd. So we have November off because it's a busy month with holidays and everything else between Veterans Day and Thanksgiving. So it will be December 2nd at 2 p.m. And at that point, we are going to be doing MCC's Budget 101. So it's an opportunity for Allison Chambers, our CFO, to really go through a lot of the same information that we go through with our Board of Trustees to understand where the income from the college is, where the expenditures are, how the budget plays out for this particular fiscal year. That budget will actually be approved this afternoon by our Board of Trustees at the Finance Committee meeting, and then at the actual Board of Trustees meeting this afternoon at 5 o'clock. So we want to share all of that with you and answer your questions about the college's budget for this fiscal year. So hopefully you'll get December 2nd at 2 p.m. and put that on your calendar for the next critical conversation. One of the things we talked about on Friday and we continue to talk about is the importance of collective voices. And I think that today's example is really one of the most important ways that we gather information, and that is to do that through CCSSE. And so I'm really pleased that we have a report on the results on our last operative with what we did with CCSSE last spring. We're really excited to share those results with you. I think that students are, when they take the time to do this and when faculty volunteer time to be able to use part of their class to complete this survey, it gives us a broad spectrum of what our students think, where are some of our concerns, where are some of the areas of improvement. And that's really important for all of us to hear. So I'm really delighted to bring you Niab Azimi, who's going to go through all of the information from the results, and then we'll take your questions, and I'll turn it over to you, Niab.
Thank you, Phil, and thanks, Beth. It's really great to be here with everyone. Like Phil said, we're going to go over CCSSE. Some people that may be familiar, some people have maybe never heard what that is. So I'm going to give everyone a run through. Okay. Screen looking good for everyone? Awesome. So today we're going to go ahead and go into the 2025 Community College Survey of Student Engagement Analysis. So I'm going to explain the survey to everyone, chat about its background, the mechanics, how the scoring works, and then we'll go ahead and move into the MCC specific scores. And we'll dive a bit deeper into that and look at some specific points that we could learn from. So I want to give you an overview. So who created this survey? Where does it come from? So the Community College Survey of Student Engagement, known as the CCSSE, I'll be exclusively calling it the CCSSE from here on out, so now you know what that is a national survey conducted by UT Austin Center for Community College Student Engagement. The first CCSSE was administered in 2001. So we might have some folks in here who have worked at four-year institutions. You may have heard of the NSSE, that is the National Survey of Student Engagement. That was developed in 2000, and it became pretty apparent to folks at two-year colleges that it wasn't serving our needs. We all know this problem very well. So the institute over at UT Austin, they developed this really robust evidence-based, research-based survey tool, and it's been extremely important for the community college landscape ever since. Since 2001, 958 community colleges across the country have participated in the survey. It is a survey that all community colleges in Massachusetts participate in. There's 49 states represented, even parts of Canada, British Columbia, Toronto, Vancouver. We even have some representation from Bermuda, some of the US territories abroad. So it is a national, if not international, survey that has a lot of built up trust. Since 2007, MCC has been participating in the survey on a 3-year cycle. So the survey happens, they do one every year, and each institution can decide at which frequency they'd like to participate in. So over here at MCC, we do it every 3 years. So for the spring 2025 survey, 188 other community colleges across the country also participated. Those community colleges span across 48 different states. Some of our peer institutions that we know well that also participated this year were CCRI, Bunker Hill, Bristol, and Community College of Vermont, to name a few. It's I'm pointing out how many institutions participate in because that is one of the biggest strengths of the survey. That really is the value proposition here. We have such a rich data set, and our the way the survey works, and I'll explain that a little more in depth in just a few, but our results are in relation to everyone else also taking the survey. So we get to see our scores in relation to our peers. So having 188 other schools to, that are in that cohort is a really big deal. It helps us get out of our own bubble, out of our heads, and see where see how our students are engaging with us in relation to how students at other colleges are engaging with their institution. These survey results are they're part of they're a piece of the puzzle. We have a lot of metrics that we use to understand how our students are doing at the college. We have we have grades, we have our RISE metrics that look at credit accumulation, retention, persistence, graduation rates. We also have the wonderful student climate survey using the Pedagogy of Real Talk framework that asks students about their sense of belonging. So we have some really incredible pieces to pull from, and this survey is a really important part of that fabric to help us understand a more holistic view of how our students are experiencing their time at MCC. So specifically, what does it measure? So I mentioned student engagement, but that can be quite broad. So the way that student engagement is broken up is into these 5 benchmarks. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into each benchmark and explain how it's defined in the context of the survey. So active and collaborative learning. Questions ask students about their classroom experiences around teamwork and participation in class. Questions include, how often have you asked questions in class or contributed to class? Or how often have you worked with other students on projects during class? The next benchmark I'll go into is student effort. Questions ask students about the frequency of their academic behaviors related to student success. Questions include, how often have you prepared 2 or more drafts of a paper or assignment before turning it in? Or how often have you worked on a paper or project that required integrating ideas or information from various sources? The next benchmark is academic challenge. Questions include questions ask students about the complexity of their academic tasks and the effects outside the classroom. So those questions include, how much has your coursework at this college emphasized analyzing the basic elements of an idea, experience, or theory? And another example of a question is, how much has your coursework at this college emphasized applying theories or concepts to practical problems or in new situations? Our 4th benchmark is student to faculty interaction. So questions ask students about the quality and frequency of communication with faculty members. 2 of the included questions are, how often have you discussed grades or assignments with an instructor? Or how often have you received prompt feedback from instructors on your performance? And the 5th benchmark is support for learners. So questions ask students about their experiences engaging with college support services. Some of those questions include, how much does this college help you cope with your non-academic responsibilities? And how much does this college provide the support you need to help you succeed? So you can see that the survey has, it really reaches across a lot of different areas. There's really useful and rich data that comes from it. A point that I definitely wanted to make is doing a survey like this is, it's a big lift. It takes a lot of resources, takes time, it takes a lot of manpower, it takes money. So schools that can participate in it, they usually do, because the results really span across these 5 areas that are really critical to our college. Another point is, students are asked to reflect on their entire college experience, not just the course in which they're being surveyed. So how was the survey conducted? So I'll give you a bit of a timeline here. In March 2025, a random sample was generated from all spring 2025 in-person courses. So this excludes labs, clinicals, and non-credit courses. Dual enrollment students were not included in this survey, and the survey was only for degree or certificate seeking students. So of the random sample, 50 faculty members agreed to allow survey administration during class time. A special focus item of the 2025 CCSSE was AI in the learning environment. So every year for the CCSSE survey, they choose a special focus, and they choose a focus that tends to be timely and relevant. So past topics include guided pathways, transfer. Right after COVID, it was the effects of COVID in the classroom. Around 2008, the topic was financial aid. So they really try to pick things that are things we need to know about in the moment, almost while it's still happening. Along with the special focus items, MCC had the option to add on some custom questions. So we chose to tack on some custom questions that only our students would answer at the end of the standard survey. I want to give a huge shout out to the faculty who participated and allowed us to come into their classroom. It is a big ask to ask for an hour of your class time, and that is very much appreciated. Definitely just want to give you kudos. Thanks again. Okay. So in April and May of this year, surveys were conducted in person via paper and pencil. Students were given 45 minutes to complete the survey. And surveys were conducted by IR staff and 4 paid adjunct faculty members. 615 surveys students were surveyed, which is approximately 11% of our degree-seeking population. Our next part, I'm going to dive into who those students are, but we found them to be fairly representative of our degree-seeking student body, which is exactly what we want. Another note is because of the exclusion of labs and clinicals, no courses that were housed within our health programs are represented. But if those students in all the other divisions are. We did try to roll out the survey to our online-only students, but unfortunately received extremely minimal responses. So we weren't able to include them as a sampled population. But it is important to point out that 45% of students in the surveyed courses were taking one or more online courses during the semester. So that experience of engaging in online courses was certainly represented in the survey results. I want to give another big shout out to our in-class survey administrators, the faculty who were able to help Ryan, Chris, and I, as we administered surveys. Going to 50 different classes is no small task, and without you four, this would not have been possible. So thanks again. Okay, so which students participated? So I'm going to, in this slide and the next couple slides, show you a breakdown of the survey respondents in relation to all MCC during spring 2025. So for enrollment status, we can see for part-time and full-time, 80% of the respondents were part-time and 84% of all MCC degree-seeking students in spring 2025 were also part-time. So we see a close representation there. And the same thing for age. We can see that 62% of survey respondents were under 25, and 66% of all degree-seeking students were under 25. So again, a close representation here. Moving into gender and race and ethnicity, we once again see that the percentages are very close to each other, all within 4 percentage points. So we can see that for our gender and race and ethnicity. So which courses got sampled? So we can see for courses by division, we can see some alignment there as well. We can see for our liberal arts, 56% of the courses that were surveyed were liberal arts, were 52% of all courses by division were liberal arts, 32% for STEM, for surveyed courses, and 30% for all, and then 13% of courses were in business, legal, or public service, and 12% were in courses by division. We again see some really close alignment for survey courses by faculty contract type. Again, those are all within 4 percentage points of one another. So I want to talk about how the scoring works. So we receive standardized benchmark scores that compare our performance to all other colleges participating in the survey. So for each of those 5 benchmarks, we'll get a score, and a score of 50 represents the average amongst all colleges. So the idea is that they're all standardized. Half of all participants will score above 50 and half will score below 50. But 68% of all benchmarks scores will fall between 25 and 75. So to be between 25 and 75 would be to be alongside our peers and to be with the pack. To be below 25 or above 75 would be on the extreme end. So with this in mind, I'm going to show us our scores. So the results for our benchmark scores. So for active and collaborative learning, MCC scored 41.6. For student effort, we scored 48.2. For academic challenge, we scored 45.3. For student to faculty interaction, we scored a 40.9. And for support for learners, we scored a 50.6. So we can see compared to peer colleges, so colleges with similar enrollment, for active and collaborative learning, we have a difference of 8 points. For student effort, we are 2.1 points behind them. For academic challenge, we have a difference of 5.1. And for student to faculty interaction, we have a difference of 9.2. And for support for learners, we can see that we are 0.6 above our peer colleges. So for folks who a visual can sometimes be more helpful, here's that graph once again, and the red stars are where we scored, and the teal in that middle represents where the 68% other folks scored. So we can see for one of them, we're slightly above average, and for the other 4, we are below that 50 line. So let's go in a bit further into those results. So I'm going to show you the top 10 highest aspects of student engagement relative to peer colleges. So these are the top 10 questions that highlighted where our students are doing really well compared to students at other colleges. This is our highlight reel, and a place where we can see what we're doing pretty well at. The first one is providing the financial support needed to afford education. Number of assigned textbooks, manuals, books, or book-length packs of course readings during the current academic year. Number of written papers or reports of any length during the academic year. Frequency of use, academic advising or planning during the current academic year. Frequency of use, peer or other tutoring during the current academic year. Providing the support needed to help you succeed at this college. Encouraging contact among students from different economic, social, and racial or ethnic backgrounds. Prepare 2 or more drafts of a paper or assignment before turning it in. Worked on a paper or project that required integrating ideas or information from various sources. And preparing for class. by studying, reading, writing, rehearsing, doing homework, etc. So I now want to move into the top 10 lowest aspects of student engagement relative to our peer colleges. So these are the 10 points or questions that reveal where our students, in relation to students at other institutions, where they are scoring lower in these questions. And these are areas that we can look at for improvement. Worked with classmates outside of class to prepare class assignments. Talked about career plans with an instructor or advisor. Worked with instructors on activities other than coursework. Frequency of use, career counseling during the current academic year. Frequency of use, computer lab during the current academic year. Discussed ideas from your reading or classes with instructors. Discuss grades or assignments with an instructor. Applying theories or concepts to practical problems or in new situations. Using information you have read or heard to perform a new skill. And the extent to which your examinations during the current academic year have challenged you to do your best work at this college. So I want to move us into looking at the results with a focus on enrollment type. So in digging into the results, we had the opportunity to disaggregate by aspects we typically do. So age, race, gender, and first gen status and enrollment type. We found amongst our groups that historically are more at risk, that there weren't any big disparities, but we did find an enrollment type that there is a pattern going on of lower scoring. So for our part-time students at MCC, they, in 5 of the benchmarks, are scoring lower than their peers who are full-time at MCC. For active and collaborative learning, our part-time students are scoring 5.1 points lower. For student effort, our part-time students are 1.6 points lower. For academic challenge, there is a disparity of 4.4 points. For student to faculty interaction, our part-time students are 6.6 points lower. And for support for learners, there is a difference of 1.4 points. I want to remind us that's important because part-time students are quite a big chunk of our student population. And if that is a group that is scoring lower, that is certainly something we want to dig into and have further discussions about. The next graph I want to show you all is a graph that shows perceived importance versus actual utilization by service type. So this is a graph that can show us if there's a difference between how students perceive services versus their behavior, because sometimes those two may not necessarily match up, and it can be interesting to notice that. So if we look at career counseling, we can see 49% of survey respondents believe that career counseling is very important, but 75% of them never use it. Another aspect I'll point out is transfer counseling. 49%, so almost half of students believe that it's very important, but 77% of them never use it. We can see a similar disparity between how students are thinking about a service versus how they are actually using it. For job placement assistance, we can see 92% of students said they've never used it. So it is just a glimpse into how our students are maybe thinking about a service and how they're actually engaging with it. The next part of that is to think about their satisfaction by service type. So we have the red dot for not at all satisfied and the green dot for very satisfied. And we can see for all of them, student organizations is just below 50%, but for most all of them, majority of our students engaging with these services are very satisfied, which is great. And we can see that if we think about this in relation to the previous graph, it tells the story of the students who there's a bit of a disconnect between students feeling that certain services are important versus them actually engaging. But the students who do engage are very satisfied. They're having a great experience. So it brings us back to a constant conversation that happens that already happens at our institution and many others of how can we make sure our students are getting connected to services, because we can see here at MCC, the students who are getting connected are having a really good experience. They're very satisfied. So I'll move us into the next part of the survey, the special focus items. So just a reminder, the special focus for this year is AI in the learning environment. So we can see how we score. Before I even dive in, we are pretty on par with how students across the nation are feeling about AI, where our percentages are very similar to the 2025 national cohort. So for the first question, I'm familiar with AI tools. 68% of our respondents agree or strongly agree, and 32% disagree or strongly disagree. In the current academic year at this college, AI tools have improved my learning. 47% agree or strongly agree, and 53% disagree or strongly disagree. In the current academic year at this college, how often have you used AI tools to assist with your coursework? At Middlesex, 13% said often or very often, 46% said sometimes, and 41% said never. In the current academic year at this college, who has taught you the most about evaluating the accuracy of AI-generated content? 38% of MCC respondents said college staff and instructors, 8% said classmates or peers, and 54% said no one. And we can see, again, our responses are are largely aligned with the national cohort. In the current academic year at this college, my instructors clearly explained in the course syllabus how AI tools could be used in their course. At MCC, 71% said some, most, or all did, and 29% said none of them did. And for the last part of the survey, we're going to move into the custom questions. So these were only for MCC students. These are not compared to the national cohort, but these are questions specifically crafted for our students based on current initiatives we already have. How important is the opportunity for career-based learning experience, such as internships, hands-on experience, in your decision to declare a major or register for a course? 56% of respondents said it's quite a bit or extremely important. Blackboard is easy to use. 75% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed. I have a clear understanding for which math and English courses to register for. 81% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed. Have you been able to find classes that fit your schedule and availability? 71% said often or very often. Is there equity in services provided between the Lowell campus, Bedford campus, and online? 74% said yes, services are equitable. In what format do you mostly prefer to meet with staff or student services, such as advising or tutoring? 60% said mostly in person, 22% said a mixture of in-person and online, and 18% said mostly online. Do you currently work for pay more than 40 hours per week? 28% of respondents said yes, and 88% of respondents indicated that they're working for pay. During this academic term at this college, how many times have you missed class because of work? 22% said one or more times. In the past 12 months, how many times have you run out of money and had to rely on outside resources such as loans, friends, family, charitable organizations, etc.? 35% said one or more times. If you need to seek professional help for your mental or emotional health while attending this college, you would know where to go. 64% agree or strongly agree, and 15% strongly disagree. And how likely are you to ask for help from student access and support services, such as disability resources, accommodations, referrals for services at this college if you need it? 28% said not very likely, and 29% said somewhat likely. So this concludes the summary aspect of our presentation, but if you want to get in the weeds, you should join us for a conversation. So far, I'm going with some alliteration, data, discussions, and donuts. I might be workshopping that, but join us on Monday, November 10th. We'll have a nice casual conversation where if you want to get really granular and dig into the specific questions, there were many more that I was not able to talk about in this specific presentation, but if that's something you'd love to learn way more about, I'd be really excited to talk to you about that. I'll make sure to put information in Newscaster once I have a room and specific time, but please know we're going to make room for if you want to go in further. There's going to be other opportunities to talk about this data and how it could be applied in any specific way. In the past, data from the presentation or data from CCSSE has been used to improve services. It's been used to inform some certain types of plannings, whether that's strategic or college-wide or departmental. It's been used to apply for grants to get money for our students. So there's a lot of really interesting uses for this data, and what we want to do is to make it available to everyone. I have a summary report that is being posted to our IR institutional research webpage, so on the intranet and internet. And that is available for you all. And if you want to, if you have any very specific things you need, many of you know this, but you're always more than welcome to reach out to me or any member of the institutional research department, and we're happy to help you out. I want to thank you for your time and attention, and I really appreciate you all being here and listening.
Nayab, thanks so much for a comprehensive dive into CCSSE, what it means, why it's important to us, what our students have had to say. And, I'll remind folks that we've used this survey a couple of times now. It was essential in the writing of not only our 5-year report, but our comprehensive 10-year report for accreditation. We have built many of the issues that have been addressed in previous surveys into our strategic plan, and you would have seen last Friday that some of this is referenced in there, and we still have time to really address some of the other concerns that we see in terms of our own institutional performance issues that I think NIAB has done such a nice job of highlighting for us about areas where we can all improve. Beth, I'll turn it over to you now. If anyone has any questions of NIAB that we can answer about the survey or about any of our intentions around any of these issues, happy to tag team and answer questions at this point. There was a lot here to digest, and if you like clarification or if you have questions about anything, please, the time is now for you to sort of share your reactions, thoughts, concerns, based on the information that you've just seen from our students.
Yes, thank you, Phil. And I did drop into the chat the link to the report that NIAB mentioned. So if you want to take a look at that now, please feel free. But as she did mention, it is up on the IR web pages. Right now, I do not see any hands raised, and I have received nothing in chat.
Well, either everyone's overwhelmed from the information, but I think you've done an incredibly thorough job of identifying from the report what we can glean. And I love the idea of the donuts and deeper dive. There'll be a lot of folks who may be interested in hearing a little more about what the students have said and what we may be able to do to improve our service for them for going forward with some of the areas of concern that they noted. So if anyone has a question or anything to chat about the survey, please feel free to raise your hand or to write it into the chat, and we're happy to answer those questions for you about the survey.
Hayat commented that it's a lot of information to digest, but she will have questions and look for clarification later. So
Wonderful.
thank you for that comment. And don't forget, the session is recorded. So if you do want to go back and look at some of those graphs again and follow along as NIAB is explaining them, you will have that ability. It should be posted early next week.
Just curious if anybody has anything in a reaction that they were surprised from sort of the top list of things that we seem to be really very good at Middlesex, and any areas of improvement that you were surprised by. Is there anything in the report that seemed to surprise you or that you felt a sense of pride around?
Jill, I see your hand raised.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, NIAB. This is a huge effort. I really appreciate you condensing all of this and explaining it to us so clearly. I have a question about interpretation. The data is copious, and I'm wondering if there are any interpretations that you might offer to explain why the numbers are the way they are. For instance, I'm looking at our lowest aspects of student engagement, and naturally, my eyes were attracted to the faculty ones. And, we're kind of low, apparently, on student-faculty interaction for a couple of things. And I'm wondering if there are, like discussing ideas from readings, discussing grades or assignments with an instructor. And I'm wondering whether there are any interpretations that can be offered at this point. One that is jumping out at me is the high number of student respondents who were part-time. And I'm wondering if there's a connection there. I also know that at least in my department, the vast majority of courses are taught by part-time instructors who definitely have less time, before and after class to meet with students. So I don't know if there's any color you could provide behind the why with these numbers.
Yeah, I'm thinking the exact same thing as you, Jill, trying to interpret what this means and what's going on around this. I feel like um, I think this is just the beginning of starting to figure out. Um, I'd be really curious to uh, have more conversations with faculty and learn about are they experiencing kind of the same things alongside, and um, are there any surprises? And um, I I am very interested in gathering that and being able to provide more context for everyone. But similar to you and everyone else, I'm also sitting with the data and trying to, um, and knowing that there's definitely something happening, but what exactly is causing that? I'm sure it's variety of factors. Um, I will say that in the past, the last time we did this survey, we scored higher in this area. I have it close by, but we scored above average in student to faculty interaction, and we had largely the same faculty. So I think that's interesting context, and kind of shows that there is something that's trending differently than usual for us. So there's some investigation to be done. Um, Sorry that I can't. I wish I could give a bit of a more concrete answer, but I'm right there with you.
No,
Thank
I think you did a
thank
great
you.
job, Nayab. And Jill, I think it's probably the most important question um, that we could ask from that list. I think we had a meeting with the chairs and coordinators when we started the year, and I raised with folks the fact that one of the things that keeps me up at night is this idea of students feeling connected and belonging, and the incredibly important role that faculty play in making that happen. And you're right, with so many part-time students, oftentimes only driving in, engaging with faculty for a brief period of time, and then driving home. So it is partly the nature of our part-time students. I think it's also some changes to the contract in terms of office hours, how frequently faculty are on campus. It doesn't mean that we're not following the contract. It just means that there's been a change, and that we have to be cognizant of that. And I think the other piece is the idea of we have a fairly large percentage, as you've mentioned, of part-time faculty. It's pretty much, in many ways, the same percentage that we've had for a number of years historically at the institution, even when we were at peak numbers prior to COVID. But it is a factor, and I think all of those factors are critically important. But what's even more important, Jill, is the fact that, we see it, we're hearing it from students, and I think it's a really important point of discussion, perhaps for department meetings, perhaps for division meetings. Are there ways that we can combat this and this perception that students have? How might we be able to do that? And how might individual faculty members, both full and part-time, be able to tackle that question? I think that, remember, this is a survey that is predominantly students who are in person. The classes that we have surveyed are in person. Doesn't mean that's their entire experience, obviously. Some of their experience is online. So their responses reflect the diversity of the courses that they take and the modalities that they take them in. But we only surveyed in-person classes because of the nature of the way the survey is done. And I'm always curious about if we did this for the 33% of our students who are exclusively online, would we get different answers to this? Are we doing is some of what we're doing in terms of our online efforts really making a difference, or is what we're doing in person making a difference? And I think that that's a really important question for all of the faculty going forward. I know it's one I'm really interested in getting answers to, but I think it's a conversation that really needs to start directly in departments and divisions about, are there some things in this list? And I think we could easily, Nayab, share with folks those two slides that have the top 10 things, or what I think it's top 10, I'm not sure, top 10 things that are we should be really proud of, and the top 10 things that we need to take a look at, because I think it would be a really rich conversation locally amongst your peers about what we might be able to do to combat that. And Jill, I really appreciate you seeing that and mentioning it, because none of us have really good answers about why students are responding in that way or why our score has been decreased. But it is one of those issues that we have to address if we want to continue to see the kind of persistence and retention numbers that we want to have and the success with our students. So thank you for asking that question.
We've got a lot of chatter going on in the chat. Interim Olson wants to call out the library for their high scores. And multiple folks have mentioned how students find certain services important, but they don't use them. And NIAB, they're interested in learning more about how they can move that needle and make it so that more students are actually accessing those student services.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a really good discussion to be had. There are a lot more questions in this survey that I think could shed some interesting light on our students' behavior and more of their perceptions around things. I'll do another plug for our November 10th conversation. That is something we can definitely devote a lot of time to, digging into that. Yeah, I think we'd be able to get some more context and pull out some more gems from the survey. I wanted to answer a couple of questions in there. One question was around if students answered, I think Amy said 64% of students, oh, no, that was just a shout out. Thank you, Amy. There was a question about disabilities. I believe it was if students were able to answer if they use any accessibility services.
Yes, it was, do they disclose, NIAB? That was
the question. Do
they
disclose, right? Yep. Thanks. There wasn't a question that asked that as directly, but for the question, how likely are you to ask for help from student access? One of the answer choices was, I do not need student support services, which is maybe kind of the closest we could come. And 13% of students chose that option, but the rest did answer on a Likert scale. So that's, again, something we can dive in deeper together as well, but there isn't as directly, the question is not asked as directly as that. There was another question about historic scores, and thank you to Carrie, who pointed out that the report has that information for you. We have scores from 2019 and 2022 for you to be able to compare our 2025 scores with. Yes.
Yeah, I think Feroza makes a really great point too, is that, students are attracted to Middlesex and students are attracted to community colleges oftentimes because of the amazing array of services and the quality of those services. I think you see that in open houses. You see it as you get questions from parents for traditional students. You see it for adults who are returning. The services that we offer, from the library to ACE, they're all just really important to students. So they know that they're there. The issue is, and we've built some information into the new strategic plan about how do we do a better job of really making sure that students know all the resources that are available to them, because I think that's an important piece of it. But Feroza's point is that students tend to be very busy and they only use those services when they particularly get overwhelmed or right before they're in crisis. So how do we get students to be more proactive if they are aware of the services that are available? How do we get them to be more proactive about using them? And I think that that's an important discussion for a lot of our service folks in terms of the student services area and the student affairs area to really have those conversations, as it is important for faculty to really review what they see in the survey that really helps inform them about students' perception. So, Froza, thanks for that comment.
Jocelyn and Advising had a great post about our use of technology now. There are fewer required interactions with humans in life these days, and that could also be part of the result. And I was also thinking the last time this result was done, it was during COVID, which was a very, very different time for all humans. So,
Yep, a lot changes in 3 years.
anyone else want to raise their hand and make a comment or ask a question?
Eva mentioned something, Nayab, that perhaps we can explain about the administration of the survey. Eva serves our students in the labs in biotech, and she's curious why the labs aren't included. So is there some administration requirement from CCSSE? Is there some way we've made a decision about this? I mean, I know that that means we separate out clinicals for health students as well. So can you just take a minute to explain that piece and that decision point from an IR standpoint, and then maybe that will answer Eva's question.
Sure, yep. It's a good question because ideally we want to hear from all our students. Ryan, would I be able to pick on you?
Yeah, so we had a discussion at Academic and Student Affairs Council back in, I think it was January or February, about which classes to include. We've historically not included labs, clinicals, because faculty just simply don't have the time. So when we send data off to CCSSE, they do a sampling for us. And so if we send those off and they're highly unlikely to participate due to class time, then we lose that opportunity to survey students. So we feel it's probably a better effective use of our resources to exclude those at the front end and make sure to get as many students to participate as possible. But the important point is, and Nayab made this at the beginning, it's about their whole experience. So just because those sections aren't included doesn't mean their experience isn't included.
Right. Great, thanks, appreciate that. Great conversation. Any other reactions, responses, questions?
I'm not seeing anything new in the chat. I did repost the link to the 2025 report.
Thank you.
Folks that might want to take a look at it. And it is more robust than the slides that were shown. So you might be able to discern a little bit more by reading that report.
Yeah, and Nayab, I know the deans particularly, I know Matt Hurwitz had requested, even if it's just a couple of those slides, I think that we can determine, and Matt, you can take a look at, any of the deans can do this, any of the department chairs can do it. If there are specific slides that you'd like to focus on, we can change that presentation for you so that you can use it. And if you want to get a deeper dive into some of this, of which, we could spend countless hours reviewing CCSSE results, but I do want us to observe that we are going to make sure that we include some of these observations that we think are more important into any of the work that we build into the next version of the strategic plan for 26 through 29. So really appreciate you taking a look at that. And again, as we learned from Friday, there's tremendous value in small group conversations. And so sometimes this may be really valuable to use some of this by dividing your department or your division meetings up in some way that would allow you to just ask some questions and raise some concerns and think a little bit about, and Judy Hogan had raised, like, she knows there's more that she can do, and maybe there's great conversation for faculty be discussing what they are doing. What are some of the best practices that people could share with each other about engaging with students, and how we might be able to make that connected to the work we're doing with PRT and with with the student services staff, because we've had some great results from that. And I think at some point, Kayla, we may want to share that information with other people again and maybe make it part of an FSA discussion, because there are great efforts going on across this institution for faculty and staff to be connected to students to make sure that they feel that they belong and that they have purpose and that they can do the work that we are asking them to do. And we know how critically important that is for them and for the students that we serve. So really important.
I don't see any other hands or any other questions in chat.
Great. Well, I just want to mention that Niab did an amazing job. So if you can do some sort of form of applause, whether you do it with your little react messages or whether you want to do it right now with your hands, but great job. And to take on a survey like this and its complexity and all the steps, and to all the faculty who volunteered their time, and to the 4 folks who help administer the survey, great service to the college, really important. Happy that we could find some people who are willing to be paid to do that. And, you know, if you're ever interested in doing that, please, you know, circle back with NIOB. They'd be happy to have some volunteers to help administer this survey. It's kind of it's a huge one. And because we're still doing it through classes and the way that's being administered across the country, we want to be consistent in the way that we do it. So really important information for us, and such a great representative sample of our total population, which is great. I want to thank you all for your continued work. I want to do a special shout out and, you know, make sure that you keep in your thoughts all of our students who have families or loved ones that are, you know, going to be impacted by Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica and Cuba and Dominican Republic and other islands. Jeff Tejada has done a great job of sort of really reaching out to a lot of our international students and working with our students who have self-identified. We're going to be asking our wellness folks, and so Shannon and Amy and all of the folks that are going to be able to provide, that are going to be sending out some information about students being able to access support if they're experiencing any difficulties. And we just want to say that those folks that are on those islands are in our thoughts and prayers, as are the students that we have here whose families are on those islands. So thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. Always love having these conversations. Nab, one more time, you want to do a shout out for the deeper dive with donuts or whatever that may be? I've forgotten the title of it, but
it's okay. My alliteration got lost.
I got it.
November 10th. I'll make sure there's a big blast and newscaster and any other sorts of venues to make sure everyone knows about it. And I would love for anyone and everyone to join.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for doing that. And we're going to reference this data as we move forward for the college's work. And again, thank you, all of you, for what you do every day. And thank you for a very successful professional day. Shout out to Maria and Joanne and Destiny for great work on Friday, and all the presenters and all the facilitators. Got a lot of great feedback that we can use in a variety of functions, and we're pulling that information together. So for those of you who were part of Friday's professional day, thank you so much for your participation, and thank you for your participation today. And have a great afternoon and a great evening. Thanks again. We'll see you in a month.
Thank you, everyone. Those of you that are still on, Shannon did post extended hours in Lowell and Bedford for support sessions.
Thank you.
She did mention it will be on Newscaster, so please check that out. Have a
Perfect.
great night, everyone.
Thanks so much, Shannon. Thank you, everybody.